any civilization that has extensive knowledge of the flood means that they were alive before the flood, existing before 10,000 years ago. I want to make that point. Now, those include the pre-Inca, the early Mesopotamians, before we think of the Sumerians that left a lot of the stuff we talk about now, and ancient Egypt, which was called Kemet, not Egypt, that was a later name. The Slavic area where Bosnia is, where they're discovering some of these ancient pyramids with perfectly cut stepping stones that they found to be just like all the other pyramids around the world that represent the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon. And we have, of course, the Indus Valley Civilizations. People always want me to talk about those, which include the Hindu culture and last but not least, the Atlanteans. And you could even throw on the Lemurians if you wanted to go even further back. But I want to make a strong point is that these cultures, they go back more than 10,000 years ago. And in some cases, we don't even know how far back they go. Some of them may go back 50,000 years.
Wow.
Okay? We don't know how old some of these civilizations are. And I want to bring up an incredibly wonderful researcher that's done some great work on the Inca talking about this. His name is Brian Forrester.
We had Brian on the show.
Did you really? He's fantastic. So Brian Forrester talks about how if you look at the Inca, specifically the Inca, you can see that in places like Machu Picchu, you have these megalithic structures down at the lower levels, and then you have a completely different style of building on top of them. Completely different, okay? And you see that all around these.
Well, not even just style, wasn't it? Weren't these stones dated completely, like hundreds of years separately? They
were dated differently, and they were carved totally differently.
Yeah.
And that's what we're about to get into right now.
Sorry.
So when we look at these locations I mentioned, which when I mentioned Mesopotamian region, you have to include Turkey right into Lebanon with all of these megalithic structures.
Göbekli Tepe.
Exactly, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Anywhere in the world that you find large, and that's what megalithic means. Megalithic means a large single stone that was carved, okay? Now, the problem with that is that how do you move it? How do you move these blocks that weigh tons? Go look at Baalbek, Lebanon, okay? Or go look in Egypt at the unfinished obelisk. We're talking about rocks, stone blocks that have been carved into something that are so big that even today, in most cases, we could not move. So many people come in, they say, yes, we can move them. No, we can't. And that's what's even more amazing about it is that we're told that these civilizations back in the day were just developing and they moved all of these massive stones with just rollers on wooden blocks or whatever it was. None of it makes any sense until you start to incorporate that all of these megalithic structures, that, like I mentioned, these civilizations around the world, they're all part of a lost history, a completely lost time period that had sophisticated knowledge. Now, this is where it might help some people understand. After this deluge and these cataclysms that occurred, you look at geologic and ice core records. Okay, you look at ice core records from Greenland. You can see that the climate had these dramatic fluctuations that you almost can't see at all, even close in the last 20,000 years. We're talking about fluctuations that are so dramatic that they show that not only the climate of the planet became violent, but the Earth changes as well, led to the disappearance of all of these civilizations that I want to strongly make a point again, that they were extremely sophisticated and they were wiped out.
Well, that's consistent with, obviously a lot of archaeological work, but Randall Carlson said that as well. You could, date this cataclysm back to, I think, between about 10,500 to 12,000, but there was that black mat of basically ash that they were able to ascertain. It has those nanodiamonds and just all these different things that they know a certain cataclysm happened at a certain time.
So the nanodiamonds represent an impact that occurred, and I think that impact occurred first. I think that there was, based on what we see with the disturbance of how we're finding new evidence of Planet 9 disturbing comets and asteroids in the Kuiper Belt, okay? The Kuiper Belt's a recent new discovery, and it's
that Planet 9, same as Planet X?
Yes, and it's more than 10 times as large as our asteroid belt that exists between Mars and Jupiter, okay? And so Here you have this massive asteroid and comet field that exists around our outer solar system. And if you have something that perturbs those objects, they can send comets and asteroids flying into the central solar system. And that's exactly why we see these periods of these cycles of destruction on the planet that also coincide with sun changes too. So it's these combination of these multiple factors that come together.
Does our position in the galactic plane have anything to do with that as well?
And that's another factor that you also have to incorporate is because our solar system is moving, just like everything is moving. And as we're moving closer to the center of our galaxy, which we're nearing now, the energies change and all of these factors come into play. Okay. Now, so what happened that if we look at, you mentioned nanodiamonds, you look at these impact craters up in Canada, you look at the ice core samples from Greenland, you can pinpoint that there was an event that occurred somewhere around 12,800 years ago or so. And then, this is what's hard for people to sometimes incorporate. Then there was another event that occurred. So there was a two-pronged situation, two events. One was an impact of a fragmented comet that looks like it hit the ice caps. And the second was this massive tectonic earth-changing event that allowed a lot of places like Atlantis and these other places to completely disappear. Okay. Now, going back, what that means is these events were so destructive that, like I mentioned, these civilizations all around the world had such sophisticated understanding of energy that they were harnessing massive amounts of it. Think about it. What kind of energy could you harness out of the Great Pyramid of Giza? It's almost beyond our ability to understand, because we don't have anything that can even generate that kind of energy. And that tells you right there that back then, these civilizations, and maybe even it's likely connecting right to the Anunnaki, they may have been even ones that were using the energy for themselves. We don't even know. But the point is, all these structures around the world were harnessing massive amounts of energy, and they contained incredible sophistication, and yet they were all wiped out. All of them. Now, this is what happened. Like you mentioned before, read the Sumerian king list. It specifically mentions that after the flood, kingship was once again re-lowered again to the Fertile Crescent first, to places like Kish and locations like that, okay? And that's why you have this fracturing of human history that's been broken up into two different time periods. Now, so these antediluvian civilizations, after these other civilizations were jump-started, like the Inca, okay, the Sumerians, they tried to copy what was done before, and they were unsuccessful. That's why you see such different building designs that continues to get worse and worse as the generations go by, and then the cultures start to lose this knowledge. Now, that's the important thing. Why would their building practices become worse? Why would in Machu Picchu would you see stones that have been laid on top of each other that are so much less precise and so much smaller? It's simply, to me, it makes so much sense that the Anuna, specifically mentioned all across the world, these beings, they left. Most of them left, or they stopped directly influencing these cultures. That knowledge and technical sophistication disappeared. There was still knowledge that was given. The Sumerians had incredible mathematical knowledge, and they're the ones who understood the first of everything, right? The understanding farming and agricultural practices, the stars, reading the stars, the calendar design, all of that came from the Sumerians. But they claim that it was given to them from above, from heaven, from these higher dimensional beings, okay? And so there was an attempt to restart some of this technology and sophistication, but then it stopped. That's why the Sumerians are the only ones, and those who branched on from them, they're some of the only ones that still possess some of this information and knowledge. Most of it was already lost.
Well, and as time went on, I mean, they kind of, the keepers of the cheese, if you will, went into kind of the priesthood and the higher upper echelons of these kind of secret societies, if you will, and they kind of kept it, they kept it hidden. I mean, they kept that same kind of narrative and mantra going as your Enlil. Like, I want to keep these guys stupid as opposed to keep them enlightened.
Okay, so let's think about something for a second. So after the antediluvian time periods, and you get this You get this reemergence of Sumer, and you get this reemergence of what they're trying to build back up in this world. It's very clear that if you look at the records, that all of a sudden that stopped or became less and less every year. And to me, there was a decision made by Enlil and others where they decided that after the flood, since it wiped everything out, that they would essentially start over and keep us all in amnesia of the truth. Because what was he doing at the time? He was trying to play the role of God in the emergence of taking over religion.
Now, were the Great Pyramids here at this point, in your estimation and research?
Oh yeah, the Great Pyramids are part of the land of Kemet. They're part of the Antediluvian civilizations. Okay. Any massive structure on the earth is part of these Antediluvian civilizations. The ones that came after them tried to emulate them, and they were largely unsuccessful in most cases. But that's why we have this divide between the two. So when you look at how they try to say that one of the pyramids of Giza is Khafre's pyramid and the other one's Khufu's pyramid,
right.
Those Egyptian pharaohs had nothing to do with the pyramids. If anything, they're the ones that probably helped to destroy some of the pyramids. If people don't know, the pyramids were made of different coverings. One of them was black, one of them was white. The Great Pyramid of Giza had a white limestone covering that covered the entire thing. Go look at it right now. Go on the computer and type it in, and you'll see that the only limestone coverings that still remain are at the very top because they couldn't get to them.
Well, and that was a big thing of contention. I think I've mentioned somebody that you're not a huge fan of him. I'm really not. And I don't know if he's the head of antiquity or whatever anymore. Zahi Hawass, just a guy who's been totally a part of the cover for so long. And, God bless his soul, John Anthony West, Robert Schoch, Graham Hancock, and all those guys went over there and did so much awesome work in the late 90s on dating the Sphinx and literally, showing something so basic as water erosion as to why you could date the Sphinx just a way older than when it was. Well, when was the Sphinx built? When was it facing the Leo constellation 10,500 years ago? So the information's really kind of there, but like your Zahi Hawasses, man, geez, just so painful. Presiding over something so magnificent, like you said, that has the potential for so much, and he's just a part of keeping people in the dark, and I just can't stand that.
And that's what is part of what we need to understand and explain. So again, the other question I get so much is if everything you're saying is true, and all these civilizations are a lot older, and there's all this evidence, then how does nobody know about any of it? And this is what's going to get into these archaeological wars we're talking about. That's a good segue for it.
Yeah, it is. That is what I wanted to segue into before we go.
How is the fact that nobody knows about this stuff? You have to go in to understand how controlled our world has become by certain powerful families like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers, and a lot of these families who have been able to monopolize and take control of basically all of the governments and power of the world through the monetary system.
Well, even before that, and this is still a part of the archaeological wars, the sieges of Nineveh. When you start talking about, the archaeological kind of looting that went on, because, Nineveh, a place that you're talking about, the Fertile Crescent, that area, is so rich with this kind of antiquity. It's been going on for a long time, and that's why, we're going to talk about it. Are these wars in Iraq? Are these wars in Syria? Are these a part of these things?
So when did it begin, right? When did this war begin? I can trace it back to somewhere just before the Roman Empire, somewhere during the time period of when you saw some of, for instance, when the Ashurbanipal library fell to the siege of Nineveh. And that's a video that I actually have a documentary one I made talking about that on my channel, because that's an area that I've heavily studied because it connects to this moment in time when there was a race to destroy. That's hard for people to accept, but to destroy, hide, and suppress.
I mean, this is essentially the Library of Alexandria met the same fate.
That's right.
Yeah.
Most people have never even heard of the Library of Ashurbanipal, except for the fact that if you go look at where did the Atrahasis come from, where did some versions of the Enuma Elish, where did a lot of these Epic of Gilgamesh, where did a lot of these versions besides Babylon come from? Well, they came from the Ashurbanipal library, and then Babylon had some versions too. But essentially, you had these key locations where records were being kept that then were sought for destruction. Now, like I was saying, what was the symbol of the Roman Empire? It was the eagle.
Yeah.
At that point, we had this decision made to then create a massive empire on the planet that could go around and destroy not only the ancient evidence that existed, but be part of a legacy that would destroy any of the people connected to. That's why you had this war against the Gnostics and pagans. Any religion that didn't follow this powerful monotheistic Abrahamic religions, they were wiped out and cleansed, right? And that's what the whole story has been all along. So we look at something like the Nag Hammadi scriptures or Göbekli Tepe, situations where we found, or like the Dead Sea Scrolls in the Book of Enoch, okay? Though they were found in caves that were deliberately hidden and sealed. Mm-hmm. Buried underground in some cases. Göbekli Tepe was found buried under mountains of dirt. Yeah. The Nag Hammadi scriptures were found in a cave. We're talking about information that was being hunted down. And the only way to protect it was to hide it until the future, when that system was no longer in place as much, so that this information could get out. So all we have left are the scraps that haven't been destroyed.
Yeah. Or they're kept like man.
That's another good point.
Yeah, the one what is it, the British Library that has just all of those archives that just haven't even been translated yet?
Where is all this information that still exists? It's in two places. It's being guarded by the Smithsonian in the United States, and it's being guarded by the Vatican in Europe. That's who's controlling the world's archaeology right now, okay? Now, how do they do that? You mentioned Zahi Hawass. It's not that hard to do when you can control every aspect of who gets put into office and controlling the governments through controlling their money. You can make any decision you want. So what do? Well, you just put someone in charge who's going to follow the rules that have been established and this predetermined narrative that's been given. You put them in place everywhere around the world, everywhere, like head of Smithsonian, and so that they all will play the game.
I don't know if you saw the video. I think it was last summer. It was Graham Hancock, and somehow he got Zahi Hawass there, and they were supposed to debate about everything. He acted like he didn't know what Göbekli Tepe was, and he literally went petulant. He had a tantrum like a child. I'm like, wow, dude, can't you just agree without him? He stormed out. He's like, it was just embarrassing. But it's just indicative of kind of what you're talking about. That they know they're lying.
They know, and more importantly, they're absolutely covering it up. Let me give you an example. We just had all of these discoveries of tunnels that have been found, in Egypt, in near places like under the Great Pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. Okay, if you actually, and there's another video I have on my channel too. Check it out about these secrets. But they have found essentially tunnels a massive underground cavern tunnel system that may be far more extensive than even what we see above ground. Not in terms of large pyramids, but in terms of large underground areas that have been created. Now, if you go look, like here's a great one, for instance, go look at an aerial shot of above the Sphinx head, right? Above its head, you'll see clear as day an area that's been created to go down into the head of the Sphinx. And there's even pictures of Zahi Hawass himself, who is going down into the Sphinx. They have tunnels underneath one of the paws, in front of the Sphinx, and on the head. So then what was the Sphinx, right? Is it a guardian? Maybe it's guarding these tunnels, and that's exactly what it was. The Sphinx is not a pharaoh. The image we see of the Sphinx was greatly degraded and altered.
Well, you can totally see the head is like a whole totally different head now.
The Sphinx is supposed to be a lion, just like you said. It's supposed to represent the age of Leo, and it faces east. Okay, it's protecting the entrance to these tunnels. Now, where do these tunnels go? Well, number one, they go deep underground, and it's part of this harnessing of the energy aspect. And number two, they go to what may be the most fantastic library ever erected on Earth, and it's called the Halls of Amenti, okay, or the Hall of Records. Yeah. You have a place that is supposed to exist that's been referenced by many in the past, where it's supposed to have all the secrets of humanity's past. Okay, now. The reason I bring that up is we just had all kinds of discoveries about these tombs. Go look up the tomb of the birds, okay? They just found tunnels under there that connect all the way to all of these pyramids and then the Sphinx, and you realize that it's all part of an interconnected tunnel system. But at the same time, Zahi Hawass and these organizations will give statements saying that the tunnels lead nowhere, they're of no significant importance, and yet they're going down in like ladders leading down into these incredible tunnels, and they're showing blackness disappearing, and yet they don't show where they go. I mean, we're not stupid. No. It's just that people have, their time is so consumed that they can't take some time to sit down and look at all this. And then if they were to try to think that this stuff is happening, how are they going to be looked at? How are people going to view them? And that's what keeps all this stuff hidden.
Well, and you know what the beautiful thing is, from a larger perspective, man, I mean, going into this age of Aquarius, it's so beautiful because, like I said, John Anthony West's work, Graham Hancock's work, all these guys' work, I mean, it's really starting to turn that basic, rudimentary Egyptology narrative on its head. Work like yours, even just conversations like this, people at least hopefully start asking more questions, which slowly, hopefully leads to that, as you talked about in your book, you're an expansion of consciousness, kind of a reshifting of your paradigm of what is in your world.
That's right. And so when we look at places like just outside Cusco in Peru, or Tiwanaku in Bolivia, something like the Gateway of the Sun, we can find these remnants of these antediluvian civilizations. And some people usually know that some of the famous locations, like at Tiwanaku, the famous H's, right, which are like laser cut. And they're so sharp and precise that experts, which most people don't hear about, but experts have actually gone and considered and tested out the fact that could they create these using stone and bronze tools? And it was absolutely no every single time. So we're told that civilization arose 5,000 years ago in the Fertile Crescent area and then slowly developed around the world as nomadic tribes. And yet we have this sophisticated building that completely contradicts everything that we're told. And that's why I'm trying to, in the new books, talk so extensively about these antediluvian civilizations, because they represent the missing link to understanding how far back the timeline of humans go, and then looking into, well, where did all this come from, and how did human beings get this jump start with their genetics to become what we are now? And so those are those two big secrets they don't want people to know about.
Well, that was even written in the Bible, wasn't it? Something about the sons of God laying with the daughters of men. I mean,
you can see in places in Genesis where they accidentally mention God's plural instead of God. I mean, come on, it's so obvious that it's not really what we think of as this spiritual, all-creating God. It's just these beings that are manipulating and trying to play that role, and that's how it's always been.
Well, before we wind up on this archaeological war stuff, because when the Persian Gulf War started, I'm not sure if it was Iraqi freedom or back in the Operation Desert Storm, like one of the first places that was hit was the Library of Antiquity in Baghdad or wherever it was from, because that's basically old Babylon. How much do you think what's going on now, the wars in Iraq, the wars in Syria, we've seen, I mean, whatever, I'm not sure how hip you are to this, but, our government as well as other Western governments are funding ISIS and the terrorists as a proxy war, and they're going into places like Nineveh and destroying several different ancient sites. How much do you think that is a part of the Enlil, basically, the workings of Enlil?
If we get past the idea that we were really there to things like secure
spread democracy,
the banking system of the planet and the oil, let's get past that for a minute. Yes, those are reasons why we're there. But I think the main reason why we had to go in there was that we were reaching this time period where discoveries were about to be made. Okay? And they had to put a stop to that. So how would you prevent anyone from going in and studying a location? Well, you would just create a war there. It's very easy to do. And then it would be so dangerous that, number one, nobody would be able to go to study that. Number two, those things could be destroyed and nobody would know or have any connection to who did it. Was it just some, local terrorist people, or was it some kind of a connection back to some higher governments? People aren't going to know that because there's no information. It's so chaotic in Syria that it was the perfect cover. Yeah. Iraq and Syria, they are the locations where besides Egypt, the most important ancient relics existed. The most important information in history is in that area. So you can find pictures of U.S. troops guarding or walking through a lot of these sites. And you can also find information that shows that the Iraq or the U.S. military was part of some kind of an operation right when Iraq was liberated, where they ransacked the Iraqi museum.
Yeah, maybe I'd heard something about U.S. soldiers dressed as Iraqi soldiers, or something about that. Where anyway, that was one of the first places hit, whether it was Iraqis or the U.S. I imagine the U.S. going in to snatch all that loot.
Yeah, we whatever the affiliation was directly, or if it was direct soldiers, I've seen information on both, but it was basically an operation to go in and take all of this stuff and steal it all and destroy it all. That's why ISIS is shown in a lot of places destroying these places, these locations.
Yeah,
they're a hired group,
mercenaries from all over that area.
Hired group of troubled men that are basically doing the dirty work for them. Okay, that's like similar to you. Think about it. Did the CIA directly kill Kennedy? No, they hired the mob so that their hands wouldn't have blood on them.
Plausible deniability, man, at all times.
Exactly. That's why these terrorist groups are used for this means. It's to essentially wipe all this stuff out. Okay, to wipe it out so that this perpetual lie and doctrine that we're being given can continue.
I mean, bro, it's beyond even lie. I mean, it goes back to the cosmic war, to this very moment. The inversion of reality is just absolutely. It's insane. It's just so it's crazy to me, and I'm really hoping that is true, that we're moving into another celestial epoch or whatever with Aquarius, where this is more coming out, and we're moving away from the wars, and just, I mean, we're seeing now, whether it's real or not, the Jewish synagogue, insane. The guy sending bombs all over the country, insane. Well, our political leaders, kind of okaying physical violence, basically. I mean, we're in crazy freaking times, man. So
basically you have this rise of Zionism, which is part of the Rothschild family, where they want to have this superior race, kind of similar to what the Nazis wanted, but they were part of that Aryan race. What is going on with all these bloodlines fighting? What are they doing? They're trying to have this master superior bloodline control the world, and they want to essentially depopulate a lot of the rest of the population. It's sinister and really sick, and it's one of the areas that a lot of people will avoid because of the energy that's associated with it. But the truth is, when you look at the fact that wars have been funded and fueled directly from both sides,
sure,
and on almost every single occasion, and created as a means to have some kind of an outcome, one of those outcomes, unfortunately, is a lot of people end up losing their lives.
I think you're right. In my just own personal opinion, I think there is going to be a large culling of the population. And if you've seen the movie Judge Dredd, the mega cities, everyone's in mega cities, everyone has a phone, everybody's tagged, everyone's being watched, surveilled. You can't, almost Mark of the Beast style, you can't move anywhere without a chip or some kind of digital XYZ. I think that's part of the rise of cryptocurrency, etc. And and then the outside's going to be kind of the savage land, your preppers, your people living off the land, et cetera, et cetera. But that's kind of a doomsday scenario. But I see it going. I really don't know. I talked the other day about Civil War II. It seems like they're prepping for something like that. I mean, obviously they do use wars to get rid of people. But what do you see is coming up here, man, in the next few years?
The whole idea by them is they want to divide. That's what Democrat, Republican. That's what all these things are. They're just divisions. Yeah. They're a means of having people not come together. Okay, and so at the same token, you see all this hatred for so many people around the world in groups that it's just like empty and really ridiculous if you think about it. And that's all just this deep-seated hatred that's been created to divide us. Now, maybe this is a nice place to transition to, so we can have a nice happy note, which I usually always talk about this as an ending anyway. But these different zodiacal time periods are how the energy of that time period is determined. So Pisces, the last two zodiacal time periods have featured a negative polarity. And Pisces, in many ways, from the research I've done, that was more of a trick that was done because I think Marduk was involved, and he was technically on Enki's side. So there's a lot of confusion in how these beings determine who's going to rule a certain age and what that energy is going to be. But basically, it comes down to this. These beings have to follow and adhere to balance. Okay, they know that the time period of Aquarius, no matter what, is a positive polarity. Okay, so that means that the reason all this is going down right now this is basically the end of a dying empire, and that's the empire of what we see around the world with this, try to create wars and try to acquire all the natural resources and care little about the natural environment. That's this what we're leading up to this.
And this transcends right, left, ladies and gentlemen, by the way.
This just gigantic conclusion to everything they've been trying to lead us to. And the reason so much is happening in the last couple of years is that they're trying to accelerate it because just like the Mayans said, and we're reaching the galactic center and we're reaching this universal consciousness. So our energy is automatically going up, no matter what, despite all of the ways they're trying to dumb us down physically. So that means that they have to do an increasing number of things to keep us in this lower state of energy. And that the reason they're doing that, they're trying to establish who these heroes are of our reality and who the enemies are and what the truth is versus what's not true, so that when we do go into Aquarius, it can all be completely backwards. They're trying to set the stage for the future to not have the information needed so that they can accelerate to the next stage of their evolution, of their conscious evolution, energetic evolution, which is, a time of Aquarius when the veil is lifted and humanity reaches the next stage in its path. And that's what this battle and war is over. It's what will humanity's future will be, and what will the majority of the population end up following. And so you and I and those out there who are even just on a minor level trying to help a few people, that goes a lot further than we might realize. It doesn't take much to tip the scales. And right now we're at the point where this system is starting to crack, and that's why so much is happening to try to bring it to tighten it back up and go back to the old way, but you can't. I mean, the rabbit's out of the hat. There's no way to put it back. We are quickly realizing the truth. And so then
do you think there needs to be the other way, a storm before the calm?
But there's going to be some very challenging couple of years coming up. But once we get through that, I think there's going to be this dramatic reversal, because as an age is transitioning, you get chaos. It's this, again, the dying empire aspect. These beings of the eagle, they don't want to let go of power here. They don't want to let go of what's been designed here perfectly around all of this.
And it really is. It's a wicked, 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 perfect design. Yeah. When you see how the media, they're controlling the narrative of how we think through religions, through these think tanks, the universities, it is very wicked and very entrenched.
It is. And so then the most common thing I have people ask me about this in regards to this is, if the truth is getting out so fast, then why are so many people still asleep? The answer to that is, for someone to actually wake up. It's not about them coming across an Ancient Aliens episode or finding some little tidbit here. Because what's going to happen, right? Someone gets interested for 2 hours on a weekend, right? They're, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to look at it. Are they going to continue? Or are they going to just put it aside and go back to their other reality because it's too difficult to try to incorporate all of that?
Right.
Here we are, we're these beings that have a very short amount of time here on the planet. And we have free will, which means we can decide to do whatever we want. But the constructs that have been created around us often prevents us from following a certain path because of how it's been designed. And I strongly encourage people to have that, follow the path, regardless of how difficult it is as much as they can. Because in the end, when we think about what we're leaving behind here and what we're going to be doing for the future of our entire species, this is the moment in time that's never existed before, when technology and an interconnected community has access to any piece of information that we've ever had.
Right.
And so now is the time when we have to make this great stand and not pretend that someone's going to come save us. And because this is the moment when I think you see the whole term millennials and all of these different terms that are used for this certain group that a lot of people think are like ruining the world and such. But you see this group that's fundamentally different than the old ways. They don't want to work 60-hour weeks. They want to pursue different aspects of their happiness. This represents this fracturing of what has been protected and generation after generation taught. That's no longer the case. right now we're seeing this time when we're having this great leap and this great change, but instead of just focusing on games and the fun of all the technology that we're being given, we should use it as a means to become as light as possible for people. They want to break this illusion here. They want to break all this that's going on to try to get away from the distractions. Get out in nature, connect to the energy of our planet and regain yourself.
Yeah.
Lose the wireless signals, lose all these things that attack us, even though we don't realize that they attack our energy and our vibrational frequency. We have to get back and have this cleanse of both our physical body from a lot of things that are bad inside us, as well as this cleanse mentally, and just reset ourselves, and then decide whatever path we want to take that feels the most right inside. Right. Get back to trusting ourselves through intuition, and trusting that as we acquire knowledge, we become our own independent, objective observer of everything, and we can make whatever decisions we want to.
Without a doubt. I even had a post the other day, and it was just weird because I forget what one of these events happened this week, one of the tragedies, and I just go online and people are, it's this person's fault, it's this person's fault. And I just said something to the effect of, after you see something like this, you really want to go on Facebook and argue with somebody you disagree with or disagrees with you. Why don't you go kiss your husband, kiss your wife, kiss your daughter, kiss your dog, kiss your neighbor? Love as hard as you fight. Because the choice really, they can't be, the changes that need to happen can't be legislated. It comes from within us, and we have to make those choices, man. This has been absolutely awesome, and you can come back through when you drop the new book, because I'm sure you're just going to have equally as much fascinating stuff to talk about. Wow, this has been a pleasure, my friend. I really appreciate it. And let us know where we can find your stuff.
And I'll give a quick update. The Stage of Time, I feel like is going to be. And the Illusion of Us was my previous book, and it's a very important book, but I feel like The Stage of Time is what everything has led up to, essentially. It's going to be something that is what I want to leave behind of everything that I've figured out or acquired, or with the help of so many other gifted, amazing people that have influenced my life.
Right.
And I'm planning on, the hope is I'm very confident I can release early 2019. So I'm almost at the end right now, and I'm really excited to release that one. But I also like this discussion. I have my own YouTube channel at Matthew LaCroix. Please check that out. I have a lot of content on there.
A lot of content, ladies and gentlemen. Your boy has been spending hours since he gave the green light to this interview. So yes, it's a wealth of information.
And please visit my new website I just launched at thestageoftime.com. It's going to be my author page, and I also have a Facebook page of The Illusion of Us. But I wanted to get it. Because Facebook, we have to be careful to have a medium that's not going to be taken down or have so much control.
Exactly.
So I wanted to get a website established so I could prevent anything like that happening in the future.
Sure.
So, Jeff, thank you so much for having me on. It was a wonderful discussion.
Absolutely, man. This has really been very stimulating. I hope everybody had their notebook out and taking notes. And please, as he's even said, don't necessarily just believe what he says. Go reference this. A lot of this stuff is in museums, in libraries. It's out there for the absorption. This has been Matt LaCroix, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again so much, sir. Peace. So much love, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. There will always be more.